15 WWE Divas who are way richer than we think.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
15.
Lilian Garcia. Believe it or not, outside of McMahon and a few select backstage staff members, few fans know about, Lilian Garcia is the longest tenured female WWE employee in modern history. The gorgeous singer and ring announcer got her start with the company in 1999, and though her capacity has gradually diminished since then, she still partially remains with the company to this day. That's 2 decades of Vince McMahon's paychecks, and it's safe to assume they got a little bit higher as the years went on, and it became clear both sides were in it for the long haul. Whenever Lilian took breaks from wrestling, she supplemented her income with a music career, which hasn't exactly set the world on fire, but nonetheless added a few bucks to her already hefty bank account.
14.
14. Vickie Guerrero. Before anyone argues, Vickie Guerrero never quite had the right look to be called a WWE diva. That sort of negativity can excuse itself on out of this list. No matter what she looked like, Guerrero was one of the most memorable villains of her day, rapidly ascending from a status mostly defined by pity to truly becoming an incredible performer. Sadly, Vickie's legacy in wrestling largely began with the death of her husband Eddie, as she appeared in WWE to accept his Hall of Fame induction, and then participated in angles between nephew-in-law Chavo and family friend Rey Mysterio. Soon WWE discovered a real talent lied in being a loud manipulative authority figure, a position she achieved as GM of both Raw and SmackDown. While Vickie's time in wrestling definitely added to her personal fame and fortune, the sad reality is that most of her money comes from Eddie's even greater estate, which she inherited as his widow.
13.
13. Torres. By and large, the WWE Diva search was a heavily maligned concept, boring and annoying, that the majority of fans forced to sit through it. If there was any plus side to the outrageously offensive contests, clumsy games of musical chairs, or glorified beauty pageants, it's that a large number of drop-dead gorgeous models eventually earned WWE contracts. The last contest winner, Torres, actually turned out to be a pretty decent wrestler as well, twice reigning as the WWE Divas Championship. Torres had enough personality to continue performing as an authority figure once her time in the ring was over, needing little more than a coy glance and a tip of her glasses to elicit strong reactions from the fans. Since retiring from wrestling in 2013, Eve has continued to earn decent pay as an actress on various TV shows, but the real kicker to her fortune was marrying into the legendary Gracie family of jiu-jitsu martial artists. Eve's husband Rainer Gracie runs a number of jiu-jitsu academies that further add to the family's wealth.
12.
12. Natalya Neidhart. Always a stickler for wrestling tradition and nostalgia, Vince McMahon wasted no time in hiring Natalya Neidhart once it was clear her wrestling career could be something serious. The daughter of Jim Neidhart and Elizabeth Hart, Natty is the first female superstar in the expansive Hart wrestling dynasty. Her most famous uncles were WWE legends Bret the Hitman Hart and Owen Hart, while grandfather Stu Hart was downright iconic throughout the Canadian wrestling scene from the earliest days of the sport in that country. All of this means Natalya was pretty well off from the day she was born, both financially and in the sense she started training at Uncle Ross and Bruce's Hart family dungeon from a very young age. In turn, this allowed her WWE career to begin at an early age and start quite successfully at that. having held the WWE Divas and SmackDown Women's Championships one time each. Natty is one of the few women on this list to earn her fortune almost entirely through wrestling alone, both from her own career and that of her legendary families.
11.
11. Torrie Wilson. By starting her career in a company that gave million-dollar guaranteed contracts to just about everybody in the business, Torrie Wilson presumably experienced great wealth from the minute she was hired by WCW. Obviously, she wasn't exactly making Hulk Hogan money just because she was a regular arm piece for them. Whoa, but the point is that Wilson was indeed paid well from the very start. WWE kept the fortunes coming when Wilson's contract was purchased in the WCW deal, giving her a higher profile role than ever before despite the fact she barely actually wrestled. Concurrent to her wrestling career, Wilson was able to save a small fortune from her modeling career, having done multiple popular spreads for huge magazines like FHM and Playboy. On top of it all, she's also an experienced businesswoman, having run both a clothing store in Texas and a fashion line called Officially Jaded. Today, she supplements her already considerable wealth as a fitness trainer and blogger.
10.
10. Sable. Though not the first WWE diva of the Attitude Era, the immense popularity of Sable was directly responsible for the company reviving its women's championship and bringing the idea of females in pro wrestling back into the spotlight. When this happened, chances are no one was more surprised than Sable herself, who had just entered the business earlier to serve as a mere valet for Triple H, and then her ex-husband, Mark Miro. Sable made a great deal of money working for Vince McMahon during the first 3 years she did so, and yet she could be even wealthier today had things gone differently when she left. Initially, Sable sued WWE for a sum of $110 million, alleging harassment and unsafe working conditions. Because they settled out of court, the amount she actually got was much, much lower, and Sable even worked for WWE again in the future. On top of her own vast fortunes, Sable also has a very wealthy husband and fellow wrestling superstar Brock Lesnar. 9. Debra. Part of the reason diva isn't used to describe female wrestlers any longer is that it suggests the women are only on TV because of their looks, with in-ring talent completely irrelevant to the situation. Quite frankly, that was usually the case with Debra McMichael, who became a huge star during the Attitude Era simply due to the fact Jerry Lawler, various wrestlers, and thousands of fans loved yelling about her puppies whenever they were on screen. Despite a complete lack of actual training, Debra nonetheless reigned as women's champion, and was a very popular star, but she's yet another former wrestler who gained most of her fortune through who she married. Debra has not one, but two extremely wealthy superstar ex-husbands in former Chicago Bear Steve McMichael and WWE icon Stone Cold Steve Austin, both of whom she definitely likely received hefty divorce settlements from when they split.
8.
8. Stacy Keibler. Dancing her way to the top, Stacy Keibler went from a Baltimore Ravens cheerleader to a wrestler to the talk of Hollywood. Granted, that last one had more to do with a certain person she used to date than anything else, yet the fact remains Keibler has an extremely recognizable face even amongst those who never saw her inside the ring. Never much of an actual wrestler, Keibler was at least a great manager to wrestlers like the Dudley Boyz and her ex-boyfriend Test, also earning significant supplement to her wrestling income as a model for magazines like Stuff and Maxim. Since leaving wrestling behind, Stacy increased her fame as a contestant on Dancing with the Stars, and then the girlfriend of George Clooney, which indirectly earned her some money simply by appearing in pictures by his side. Today, Stacy is, perhaps, with an even wealthier man. Her husband, Jared Pobra, is the CEO of Future Ads, whose millions of dollars combined with her surely makes for a comfortable life.
7.
7. Kelly. also known as Barbie Blank, with a wooden personality to match it. Kelly wasn't all that popular among die-hard wrestling fans who felt a pretty face alone wasn't enough to make it big. Lucky for her, Vince McMahon was not one of these people, as he promoted the attractive former Venus fashion swimwear bikini model quite heavily over the 6 years she spent with his company. Evolving at a rapid pace, Kelly went from blatant eye candy performing stripteases on ECW all the way to briefly holding the WWE Divas Championship. Impressive as that is, the majority of Kelly's wealth doesn't actually come from wrestling. While she was probably paid quite well during her run with WWE, she's earning just as much today as one of the stars on ES reality franchise WAGs. Speaking of which, Kelly was married to NHL legend Sheldon Souray for some time until a recent separation. Nothing is final regarding a divorce, but Kelly definitely benefited from Souray's wealth, and could gain a good amount of cash from
6.
6. AJ Lee. As one of the shortest tenured WWE superstars on this list, AJ Lee didn't have much time to become particularly rich off of pro wrestling. That said, her contributions to the sport cannot be understated, as in many respects she was one of the first women to reject the terminology of past WWE divas and demand she get recognized as a wrestler first. AJ earned that recognition through 3 lengthy reigns as WWE Divas Champion, followed by significant attention in the spotlight as a manager to multiple main event talents, including Daniel Bryan, Kane, and her future husband, CM Punk. Naturally, her marriage to Punk has considerably bolstered AJ's fortunes as well, with the former straight-edge superstar having earned even more money in the sport than she did. On the other hand, one area where Lee eclipses her husband financially has been as an author, having written the New York Times best-selling memoir Crazy Is My Superpower, further increasing the couple's fortunes.
5.
5. Brie Bella. When Vince McMahon first learned 2 gorgeous women were attempting to become famous pro wrestlers and happened to be twins, his mind must have exploded. This would surely explain the almost immediate success of the Bella twins, Brie and Nikki, upon their entrance into the WWE Universe. Surprisingly, they failed when entering the 2006 Diva Search, but were soon both trained to appear in WWE anyway. It was actually Brie who appeared on screen first, soon followed by Nikki. Before long, Brie managed to briefly reign as WWE Divas Championship, but she and her sister's true goal was always just fame in general. They achieved this by using WWE as a launching pad for their immensely popular reality show Total Divas, followed by an even closer look at their life in the spin-off Total Bellas. Throw in Brie's marriage to Daniel Bryan, one of the most popular and successful wrestling personalities in the world today, and it's clear she's one of the richest women in
4.
4. Nikki Bella. For whatever reason, Nikki Bella's story is essentially the same as her twin sister Brie's, with the slight caveat that the older sibling by 16 minutes is somehow significantly more successful. This applies both inside the ring and to their financial situations, and for those concerned with fame and social status, also her marriage. Initially, Brie and Nikki were essentially equal in fame, and Brie actually seemed to earn more spotlight early on in their careers. This changed when WWE apparently decided Nikki was the better wrestler of the two, rewarding her with 2 Divas Championship reigns, the latter of which was the longest any woman attained in the belt's existence. She also benefits greatly from Total Divas and Total Bellas, and despite what we're sure will be an extremely detailed prenuptial agreement, Nikki's impending marriage to the face of WWE, John Cena, will further reassure her vast financial fortune.
3.
3. Trish Stratus. Many women have taken credit for the status their gender has attained in the business recently, yet none deserves it more than Trish Stratus. Standing as a microcosm for females in sports entertainment in general, Stratus went from a gorgeous model hired almost exclusively for her looks to arguably the greatest WWE women's wrestler of her generation inside the ring. Stratus proved as much by reigning as women's champion a record 7 times, and achieving a number of milestones for females in the business, sharing the distinction of being the first woman to main event Monday Night Raw. Trish's fame was such that few women have made more money through wrestling alone than she has, and her continued modeling work and endorsement deals since retirement have only made her richer. Given her fame, her current work as our yoga instructor is also pretty popular, making her wealthier and wealthier each class she teaches.
2.
2. Asuka. Considering how little time Asuka has spent in the WWE universe thus far, she may be one of the most surprising names on this list. Truth be told, she's also the one wrestler here we wouldn't dare call a diva, fearing she could rip our heads off for it. Even so, Asuka still possesses the gorgeous appearance and deadly athleticism that made Vince McMahon a huge fan, earning her a WWE contract in 2015. That said, Asuka's time in NXT and the main WWE roster has been so short it's unlikely she's made millions of dollars in the company just yet. Of course, WWE isn't the first company Asuka worked for, and prior stints in a number of Japanese promotions may well have paid her more than she's making today. On top of her time in the ring, Asuka has a surprising secondary career, having worked as a graphic designer for Microsoft. She also has a third job as the owner of a hair salon. With her past success, Asuka might not even need WWE to pay her that much to remain wealthy.
1.
1. Stephanie McMahon. Okay, so this one probably isn't all that surprising. Following in the footsteps of her father Vince, chances are Stephanie McMahon is the wealthiest woman in pro wrestling history, and nothing will change that fact anytime soon. In all fairness to the McMahon family, Stephanie was born at a time when they were arguably at their lowest, coming into this world in the same year Vince and Linda filed for bankruptcy. Of course, by the time Steph was an adult, her parents had risen up to the status of certified billionaires, and she benefited from their wealth immensely. Not that Stephanie hasn't been putting in work herself, becoming an official WWE employee in her teens as a model, and predictably ascending to her high executive status in the company as the years went on. Steph's personal wealth is compounded by that of her husband Triple H, who likewise makes serious money through his position as a WWE executive. Should Vince step further away from wrestling, Stephanie and her husband Triple H's bank accounts will only become even larger.
Yeah.